You're listening to The Crypt, and joining me now as part of our Nightmare on Elm Street special is Mick Strawn, who was the art director for Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3 and production designer on Part 4. Other movies you will know his work from include Boogie Nights, Blade and Buffy the Vampire Slayer, to name but a few. So you're so welcome to the show, Mick.
Oh, well, thank you very much. Here I am, and here you are.
Exactly. Listeners don't know this, but it's taken us a few weeks to get this interview going because something kept coming up. Worst thing was vomit and bug, but thank God we're through it now.
This is a vomit-free zone.
Yeah, vomit-free zone. I love it. Well, firstly, Mick, can we talk about how you first came to work in the industry? Was this something that you always wanted to do?
You know what? Not necessarily. I had done a lot of construction and strange things, and I lived out in San Bernardino, which is like 60 miles east of LA. Now, my sister worked in the theater in New York, and she got an offer to come do a commercial in LA, and she came all the way from New York doing wardrobe, and came to LA and started to do this commercial. Well, this commercial turned into a huge, monstrous affair. And she needed somebody that was on her side to come and yell at people.
Nice job.
Listen, you know what? If you want somebody to be loud and obnoxious and on your side, I have all those qualities. So I came out and I was loud and obnoxious and on her side, and I just never left. It's funny, we didn't work together again, I don't think, for another 5 years.
Really?
Really, the first we kind of like did a couple things back and forth, like little tiny things here and there.
Yeah.
But I was riding in an elevator doing some billing for a company that I was working for that was setting up all of the effects for Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And we've been working along without a director, and you know how sometimes you have to do the effects way ahead in order to, before you start filming. So we had been testing stuff out for probably 2 months, and we were doing our kind of final billing. And so I go over and I happen to meet a guy as I'm going 8 floors up to the offices of New Line. There was somebody that I knew in the elevator, and his name's Jerry Olson.
Wow.
And I said, "Hey, Jerry, what's happening?" And he goes, "Oh, where you been, Mick?" And we got to talking back and forth. And he goes, "Yeah, I'm doing this film called Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And I go, "That's funny, I'm doing the billing for it." I said, I kind of did a lot of the setups for the effects. And by the way, hey, do you have a production designer yet? Because I'd sure love the job. And I tell people all the time that I got the job in 8 floors.
That is amazing. In an elevator.
Right around the 7th floor, he asked me, because he knew that I knew construction and effects and stuff like that. He says, "Do you have anybody that can help you with set decoration?" And at 7.5 floors, I said, "Yeah, you know what? I could bring on my sister."
Oh,
Ding!
Excellent.
That's perfect. Sounds like a deal. And he walks out of the elevator, and I got the job.
That is amazing. And where do you even start when you're planning how to bring to life the dream world in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie?
Well, that's really funny because that was the first thing I thought when the doors closed again. I thought to myself, "Oh my God, what have I done?"
It was a good idea at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. So let me tell you where I started. I started by looking at the current 2 nightmares. Now, I got to remember at that time there were not a whole sequel after sequel after sequel after sequel. Yeah. They didn't do that. So the fact that we were going to do a 3rd sequel kind of freaked me out because I thought, man, that's something that, that you just don't do. You don't, because what would happen is every sequel from then on would be just diminished returns and diminished returns and diminished returns. And everybody figured that, you didn't do it for the long run. So my whole mindset was this. We're going to try and get the other side of the curve. I'm going to make this thing so big and so, actually the number one thing that I thought to myself was this, and I thought this through 3 and 4. These are going to be roller coaster rides as much as they are horror films. And that's what we did.
You were behind the Freddy Snake
Yeah.
Which is the scene everybody talks about. That scene.
Oh yeah. That was a favorite. I had quite a big part to do in it, I have to say, and it was a lot of fun. I think I told one story on Elm Street about Freddy Snake, and I'm going to tell you one of the other great stories about Freddy the Elm Snake.
Perfect.
Well, first of all, I'll tell you a really quick one. We had created, over at Image Engineering, we had set up a track system that broke the walls to look like it was supposed to break the floor and the walls to look like the snake was, sort of like a mole, Sort of like a gopher was breaking everything up as it went around. That was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
And so we had created this long aluminum track. And the idea was that the aluminum track was going to have roller skates with helmets on. Just think of the idea of a like a skateboard.
Yeah.
Like little skateboards that are only about 7 inches long, but each one of them has a football helmet kind of on it, right? And you pull them along this track, and they break up the floor as they're going, and then they go up the wall, and they break up the wall, and and you build walls in front of them that break away, so that the helmets are gonna like break everything up.
Yeah.
First of all, when we did it, what we did notice was that there was so much inertia when we actually filmed it. There was so much inertia that the rugs and anything that was on the floor actually just started to float up in the air. So if you look at the scene, you see the second shot you see everything floating on the floor, and then all of a sudden it directionally goes up the wall and on around the walls, right? The thing that we had is we had all these things floating at the beginning, and you couldn't figure out visually what you were looking at. All you saw was everything just floating around on the floor. Peter and Chesney and we were the ones that started all that in the first place. After the filming was done, we were given the challenge of trying to make that all make sense. And we were watching it back and forth and going, oh, God, there's got to be something that looks like it's coming straight towards you. That was my idea. And he goes, well, what if we set up a camera and you get a funky carpet that looks like the carpets that were in there? And, we started with that, and eventually we kept pulling things underneath the carpet and filming them to see if we could get it look like something was coming right, like a snake was coming right towards you, right? And eventually we wound up tying a piece of rope to a Clorox bottle and pulling it, waggling towards the camera, and it worked. And here's the thing. This is the irony of all this. It's probably an $80,000 gag, right? For the first, just trying to build the track and everything costs a fortune, right? And the first thing that you see of that gag is a 79-cent Clorox bottle with about 10 cents worth of rope. That's what we needed in order to make the $80,000 gag work.
This is what, I do love hearing these stories, though, because the whole debate of practical special effects versus CGI comes up on this show all the time. And I just think it's so amazing to hear the stories of how you put these scenes together rather than just computerized crap on the screen. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I'm going to throw out my quick opinion on that, and then I'll tell you the next story.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
My quick opinion on that is there was a time where we had to think about these effects sequences harder than we thought about the rest of the film.
Yeah.
In fact, perfect example of that is how I got the film in the first place, is because the special effects people were working for months before you actually started filming, and all the stuff that they were working on probably comprises only 10 minutes of actual footage. The thing is you have to look at that and you have to say, okay, this is the best way that we're going to start Freddy by breaking this up, and then we're going to have to then we have the point of seeing the thing go up the walls, and you have to take the storyboards. Peter Von Scholly, a great friend of mine, and Peter Von Scholly was the one who would sit down and do storyboards with me and the director, and the two of us would get together and we would figure what the what the sequence was, how big the shots were and so forth, and for what angle we could do. And then we would look at it for a while and go, well, we're going to have to adjust that according to like what it was we could actually do. But because we had to think so hard about these sequences, they tended to be the highlights of the films. And nowadays, I think what you're seeing is it's a little bit too easy.
Yeah.
To do the visual effects. I have to like hand it to Mad Max. I have to say that film was the perfect example of bringing together the CGI effects and the practical effects, because it feels practical. I mean, you can see things happening, you can see accidents, you can see all this stuff, and it's just enhanced with the CGI. That's what we should be doing. We should be doing our films as practical as possible, and then enhancing them with CGI.
Well, that's it, because it makes it far more interesting.
Oh, it does, and it makes it far more visceral.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, you can feel it when it isn't really happening. And to tell you the truth, I can point to just about every Marvel film that's been made recently as to not feeling very visceral.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take you back into the second good story. Because you should have at least two good stories.
Okay.
Okay. Here's the second good story. So I'm going to go back to a world that we're already like halfway involved in. We're in the middle of this sequence. So we had set up these tracks, and the track that had the little football helmets on it, the very first time that we filmed it, and notice that I said the first time we filmed it, everything is getting ready to go, and they called me out and said, okay, and I'm not running the effects at this point, I'm running the production design. But what they wanted me to do is they wanted me to get on the rope at the end and get about 20 people to pull the little track through and to break up the walls. So we get set up, we're ready to pull, and I do have my entire department. I have like 20 people, and we're getting ready to pull, and cameras start up, action. Somebody had taken a clip and had clipped the cable to the track itself instead of clipping it to the other cable that had the little devices on it.
Yeah.
And so I had 20 people pulling on the thing, and I was the one that was supposed to regulate the speed. And so we start pulling, and we pull the whole damn track out straight.
Oh, Christ.
40 feet of it all the way out across the stage.
Oh, my God.
And everybody just freezes. They totally figured out. I heard this moan. I mean, moan come from the director on the set. And the whole track is laying out, and the whole crew turns to me, being as I was the one that was the biggest voice in there. They all turned to me with these shocked looks on their faces, and I started laughing.
Oh.
I could not stop it, and suddenly it just catches on all through the building. Everybody is just rolling on the ground, except for, of course, Peter Chesney.
Was he crying?
Peter Chesney comes around the corner, and he's yelling at the top of his lungs, "You stop laughing now!"
Oh, that's a brilliant story.
I just couldn't help it. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I mean,
sure, but
it was the funniest. It was, it was a really high-stress shoot anyway.
Do you know what?
It was the funniest thing that had ever happened.
Hence the saying, if I don't laugh, I'll cry.
That's right.
That's the perfect example of it. Oh,
exactly.
Christ. And then between 3 and 4, which cast member would you say went through the most difficult time to bring an effect to life?
Oh, my gosh. Joey? By so far, you just have no idea.
God.
Things that we did to that guy. Well, first of all, he had to hang like he's on a crucifix.
Yeah.
Right? He has to be in the bed, where everything drops out from underneath the bed. And the thing is there was a rig there was an X-shaped rig that he had to lay on that nobody made nobody figured on how long he was going to have to be in the damn rig. And they just made it out of pieces of pipe. And by they, of course, I mean, it was probably me. He lays on this piece of pipe. He's strapped onto it with his arms out and his legs akimbo. And he is that way for shot after shot after shot. And they were complicated. And the tongues always were, flipping out and doing the wrong thing or curling underneath or everything that you could possibly imagine. He had to lay on that rig, and then we had to lay him on the same rig in the Freddy Hell set, which is the big boiler room at the end, right? So he's laying there, and one day while we're filming, and he's laying there, all of a sudden I'm walking across the stage, and I'm walking towards that really big stage that has that set in it, and everybody is running out. And I was like, well, what the hell's going on? He said, oh, there's a fire in there. So
a fire? Oh, my God.
Well, I really don't want anybody burning my sets down. And so I was running towards that room as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And I came in up high, looking down, and there's smoke coming up from underneath Joey, and he is struggling to get off of this rig.
Oh, my God.
Because we had to strap him in and nobody had bothered to take him down.
Everyone legged it and just left him there.
So I go running. I finally get in, and it was very difficult to get to. It wasn't like a case of you just run to it.
Yeah.
I finally get myself down to there, and all it was is there was a gel that was laying right against a light, and it was smoking. So then we had to coax him back onto the rig again.
That is unbelievable.
So how do you say, oh, look, man, we totally got your we got your back, brother, when the first sign of smoke, absolutely everybody ran away.
Oh my God. He must have been having a heart attack.
So then the next thing that we do.
Oh God, that's not it.
Oh my God, there's so much more, you have no idea. So then the final day of filming, we've taken and made the floor of that, have taken it outside and did a 40-foot backlit blue screen, which is the most amazing thing you've ever seen. It's like a bank of 100 fluorescent lights that they put a blue screen in front of, right? And it glows so hard and so, it's like you just walk around blind. And then we put our set piece in front of that, and then we put him on the rig sideways and stuck him up there for just all night.
Oh, jeez.
And then when we did the reshoots, then we had to put a neck appliance on him that was the fiberglass body that had the come and get me bitch
yeah
slashes on it, right?
Yeah.
And then he had to be in that for 16 hours.
16 hours, oh my God.
Yeah. He had to pee in, he had to basically pee on Joey.
Oh, good. Do you know what? I can just see him at convention appearances about, so what great experiences did you have on set? And him, great experiences?
Oh my God. I have apologized to him so many times over the years. You have no idea.
Oh, did you keep anything from the set then?
You know what? I didn't. I'm not a keeper of stuff, and I actually, all my photos and stuff were pretty much destroyed because I was on Hercules in New Zealand, and all of my possessions, all of our possessions and belongings were in a storage unit right in the middle of a town called Northridge. You ever heard of the Northridge earthquake?
Oh, Jesus. So you've lost all your stuff.
Yeah, exactly. We got back from New Zealand, basically what we had was luggage.
Dad, I tell you, you've some stories to tell me. I'm going to have to get you back for a second interview another time.
It's been an interesting run.
It most certainly is. And then we'll talk about some of the other movies you worked on.
Okay.
So, of course, well, No, it wasn't a movie. It was a TV show. Freddy's Nightmares. Were you much involved in that? Were you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Everything you see was built by us.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, everything you built, and I also ran all the effects on it. Now, trust me in this. I don't remember any of this at all because basically it was. I hardly ever left the stage for 8 months, and it was just a complete and total blur. But I will tell you a pretty funny thing is we would have a production meeting for the next week on Thursdays at lunch, and basically everybody we would all get around, all the departments would sit around a big table and we would get the new director in and we would go through the script. And it was getting to be maybe the 20th episode, and we were all just really incredibly tired.
Yeah.
And probably for the third time, the script opened with a little intro piece with Freddy. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of it, and I'm not kidding, for the third time, it said, and then Freddy bursts into flames. And the guy who's reading is the first AD, and he reads it and he says, and Freddy bursts into flames. And there's this just sigh that goes around the table, just like, And then there's just a quiet half of a beat, and then the key grip looks up and he goes, couldn't we just have him burst into song instead?
Do you know
that gives you an idea how tired we were getting.
Oh, I can imagine. I loved the first episode of Freddy's Nightmares because you got the whole backstory.
Oh yeah.
I absolutely love that, and it's a show that's hard enough to come by now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It is.
They want to do something to get a Blu-ray release there because the amount of people who just say to me they've been looking for it and they can't find it, and because they were good.
I thought that they were pretty good.
Yeah.
There was a certain point to where I was, kind of beyond caring, and
when you're that exhausted.
Well, what I really liked for the longest time, I had the Freddy's glove that had the dental tools on it.
Oh, class!
I had it.
I
thought to myself, "Oh, this is something that I'm going to keep."
Yeah.
And just on the very last day of us wrapping out of the building, this guy comes along and he wants to know if there's anything that we have that we could give to this charity, kids charity, that they could sell off at an auction. Yeah, see, and I thought about it for a minute, and I thought, you know what, I'm just not a collector of things, and I gave that to him, and away it went.
Oh, well, it went to a good cause, so we can...
Well, you know what, I have all these bizarre memories, so there you go.
That's it.
I got everything.
That's it. Another two movies I want to mention that you worked on, Bleed and Candyman.
Now Candyman was very, very interesting. Candyman.
I feel a story coming on.
Well, this is a really strange one. I was hired. I got this call from a friend of mine that said, you need to come down and talk to this producer who's doing this film called Candyman. He's got a problem. So I go down and I'm sitting in his office and he goes, we're having some tension between the art department and virtually everybody else. And I go, okay.
Oh,
and he goes, for some reason, he's being really trying to be tactful, but basically they got a real kind of prima donna production designer, and they asked me to come in and maybe act as a supervisor to kind of control her. And I was like, okay, and I said, what's good? He says it'll be about 2 months, and basically you can take whatever credit you want at the end of it. And I said, it's not my film. I didn't do the setups on it, so I'll take supervisor. And we sat down and we made a deal, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we made a deal, and I walked outside and walked over to the set. When I walk over to the set, I walk kind of just by glancing, looking down at the craft service table, and this crazed-looking blonde woman storming around the corner from the set and grabs the coffee mug and disappears back into the set. And I looked and I just kind of like stood there and I said, well, what the hell was that? And about a second later, just right after that, this distinguished looking older gentleman runs around and he grabs the decaf and goes back in onto the set. And I follow him onto the set and watch the two of them throw hot coffee at each other.
Oh my God.
I saw that and I turned around and I went back into the office and I made a new deal for twice as much money.
And don't let her have any hot drinks.
And then I sat down and I virtually spent the rest of my time on that film just separating those two. It was the craziest.
That is mental. Oh my God.
It was just lunatic. And to say the least, I became the art director, but it wasn't really my stuff. I was basically just there to stop all these people from killing each other, and it was incredibly tense.
Oh, that would be stressful.
Say, now, who was the star? It was Tony Todd, right?
Yeah. Oh, Tony, he's the most nicest guy ever.
The sweetest guy in the world. I left that film being a total fan of that man.
Yeah, he treats people with such respect.
He does. He does. He's just kind of. I thought it was really funny that the people that I have known that have played the worst villains in horror films, him, Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, all these guys are the sweetest. It's really funny because they are abnormally nice people. How is it that abnormally nice people
play killers,
the worst human beings in the world, or not even human beings?
And do you know what? I just reviewed Kane Hodder's documentary that's coming out in his life, To Hell and Back, and I think it was Daniel Harris who said that you'll meet all these guys who play superheroes in movies and they're assholes, and then you meet these guys who play these serial killers and cannibals and whatnot, and they're the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't it the irony?
That is 100% been my experience.
So, what are you up to these days?
You know what? These days, I help my wife run a small business up in Washington, and I get to play with my grandchildren.
Oh, well, sure, that's the perfect day.
I have 4 here, and I have 2 grandchildren in Portland.
Oh.
They are hilarious. They're super smart, so that means they take after their mother. It can't come from my line, that's for sure. And my wife.
I'd say their funny side.
So, have you ever seen on my feed the helmets that my wife paints?
No, I haven't seen them at all.
Oh, well, if you ever get a chance, look up Lizardo Studios on the internet and take a look, and you can see that she paints orthotic helmets, and I help the logistics of moving them in and out of town. She's probably the most talented human being I have ever met.
Oh, that's lovely. Oh, I most definitely will check that out. And can people follow you on social media, or do you like to keep it private?
Oh, no. I get into like stupid arguments with everybody about horror films all the time. I actually I'm actually going to be at several events this year in Lexington, Scarefest. I will be at Scarefest, and I'm going to be hanging with Fred Head Group.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be in Idaho and Spokane at the Horror Fest and Fan Nexus, and I do things from time to time. I'm going to start a podcast myself of reviewing modern horror films, and
awesome.
then laughing and snarking at them and saying weird things like, "Oh, that's not the way we used to do it."
Well, I can tell you, I will definitely be your number one listener.
I hope to give some of the zaniness that I generally exhibit.
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a sane human being. How boring.
Yeah, exactly.
This has been quite a pleasure. I'm so glad that I can actually understand you.
Oh, thank God. Were you worrying I'd be a bit leprechaun-y?
Yeah.
Top of the morning to you, laddie.
Well, I did work on Hercules down in New Zealand, and they had a very soft accent,
Yeah.
It was soft and polite, and they have about 100,000 different meanings for the phrase, which is very interesting. My wife actually made a dictionary. Do
you know what? My husband's from Scotland, so when I first started going out with him, I had to act as an interpreter to all the grandchildren in our family because none of them could understand him. They understand him now.
Well, there you go. It's
15 years later.
I like to think that together that we are just one people separated by common language.
Oh, well, I tell you, Mick, it has been just so much fun having you on the show, and I'll definitely have you on again another time because I'm sure we've only hit the tip of the iceberg with your stories.
Oh, I have stories that go on. Listen, I can bore my wife to tears in a heartbeat.
I doubt that somehow. I'd say just you make people laugh too much to bore them.
Well, listen, see, but at least you didn't have to turn off your mic. So I modulated myself enough for that.
Well, as I have to keep kind of pulling back when I laugh because my laugh's so bloody loud. I'll blow the microphone.
See, I should learn to do that when I laugh, but I just so used to being loud.
Well, listen, Mick, I will say goodbye for now, and most definitely we'll have to do this again.
This has been a blast. I have had a really good time, and we will definitely talk again.